Ladies and gentlemen, I am so excited for today's episode of the Rush Hour podcast. I have a very great guest here, one of Georgia's finest. It's Kelly Johns. How are you?
So great. Thank you for having me, Dave. You've been a wonderful friend all these years, so
Oh,
appreciate it.
thank you. We were trying to even find out when we spoke last via Zoom, but we've never officially been able to meet in person, which I'm assuming you're just avoiding me, but that's okay. I'm okay
You
with.
haven't come to Atlanta yet, have you?
Well, I'm getting closer. I'm
Right.
officially only a few hours away. Boy, Georgia, does Georgia count as a swing state? Are you in a swing state?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Is like the political commercials, are they like nonstop?
So we actually use my in-laws' TV, like direct TV. We stream through them, so we don't get the Georgia commercials as much. We get the North Carolina ones. But yeah, I'd say in Atlanta is obviously very blue, but outside of that is not. So last election, Biden barely won Georgia by 11,000 something
Well,
votes.
I think they're still looking for votes, actually, if I'm not
Exactly.
mistaken.
Exactly.
Uh,
But yeah, we're considered like purple now, I think.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Well, I'm in a red state, as I've been told, in Tennessee, which is interesting because there's a lot of like advertisements for like invasions happening. Like we gotta secure the border. And I'm like, I just drove, like there's just a couple of highways. Like I don't know what they're so
Also,
afraid of here.
Tennessee, you're not near Mexico.
Yeah, I think they want to build a wall from Alabama, which I can kind of get behind. So, they said they're going to make Alabama pay for it, but we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, that worked out last time.
So, Kelly, big Bachelor commentator. That's what I know you from. Give me your State of the Union as far as Bachelor content goes. Like, what have you been up to?
Well, I am a mega fan, first and foremost. I've been watching since season one. It is a big part of my life, and I'm not ashamed of that. 5 years ago, I started making parody videos because I've been doing acting for half my life since, well, more than that. I started doing theater as a kid, started doing on camera work when I was about 15. And 5 years ago, I was like kind of feeling burnt out on like auditioning all the time. And it's hard to book things. You know that. You're an actor as well. So I just was like, I'm going to take this into my own hands and start making some of my own content. I love The Bachelor. So I started kind of parodying the show and dressing up as all the characters and built a little niche audience around that. So I still do that. This season I'm taking a little step back because I'm about to have a big surgery and my husband and I just moved into a house. We're on the adoption journey. So we have a ton of big things going on that make it a lot harder for me to have the time to dedicate because it takes a while just to film one short video since I'm changing all the costumes and
Yeah,
editing.
you're like the Mrs. Doubtfire. You've got wigs and facial hair. I love you. You're a very beautiful woman. So when you play a man, it's a confusing and fun to see a woman do a bro. It's like
My husband loves it too because I'll like if I don't take off the makeup yet and I just come down and we have dinner and I have the makeup beard on. He's like, and I'll like go in to kiss him and he's like, this just feels weird. But now I use the filters that have the beard already, so then I don't have to take the extra time to put all the makeup on. So I was like,
Right, they make it too easy. I prefer makeup, Kelly Johns. But hey, so I do want to talk about your surgery, and I kind of want to work my way into that. Yeah, you have a lot going on. You just moved, and tell me about the move. Did you just get your first home? Like, are you outside in the suburbs? Tell me about that.
yeah, it was a journey just to get this house. As you know, the market's been insane. So we were looking like on and off for 2 years. And we were looking kind of closer to Atlanta, always outside of Atlanta because those prices are just totally out of our budget. And my mom kept pushing for us to move up more north to be closer to her. And mom always knows best. Shout out Kathy. So she actually found our house. So it is in Ackworth/Woodstock, which is a suburb north of Atlanta, very close to my hometown. And we're only about 20 minutes from my mom. And our neighborhood's great. I was a little worried that moving more north outside of Atlanta would not be as diverse. And we want that for our future children and for us. But our neighborhood is super diverse. Our neighbors are amazing. Most people on our street are like all our age. We're at the same chapter of life, and we have pickleball courts, so we're officially
Wow.
obsessed with pickleball now. So yeah, we're so happy to be here. It took a while to find the house. And then once we did, like we signed the contract last November, but the house wasn't ready until end of June because it was a new construction. So just that anticipation too of like waiting until it was finally done. But it made it all that much more special. So we're
Is that
finally here.
scary as a new construction? Are you like there with the builders? Do you have, I mean, imagine you have like a hard hat on, making sure everything's up to code.
We weren't here often. So the way this neighborhood works is you buy a plan basically, and you can't change anything about it. So we bought this model home. There were like 5 to choose from. And then from there, they just build everything exactly how it's set. We didn't get to change the paint, the backsplash, nothing. But that kind of made it easier because I have decision anxiety and I don't know what to choose. Like, I'm like, I don't know what tile looks best. Just do it for me. So
I love
we've
it.
been,
Decision anxiety is that I don't know if that's an actual term, but I've always, yeah, the more choices you give people, they actually say this when you have a kid. You're not supposed to give your baby or kid too many choices because it's like give them two options. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
exactly. Yeah, for me, an old therapist told me that I had transition anxiety. Like, I'm not good with big new life changes. Like, I get excited about them, but then I just get nervous because it's new and I don't know, what that's like. So,
That's so funny. Yeah, Tasha's the same way. I shoot from the hip. I'm like, that's the one. Go get it. Let's in. Don't question it. You're gonna start overthinking it. What's the first thought? But I guess we when we want when something's important to us, we want to overthink it because it's such an important decision to make. But that's really good. That yeah, I can't imagine. I was watching, Becca Kufrin and Thomas. They're like redoing their home and they're going over which color grout, and I'm like, this is not what I would want to do, in a Home Depot every weekend. But yeah, it's so funny. Your mom finds your house. And by the way, moms love Zillow. They just love, you can't get your mom off of Zillow. I think you muted your mic.
I did because my dog is drinking water.
Oh,
So,
sorry. That was on purpose. Oh, look at you. You're so good. How professional. Your dog, we can have some dog audio here.
there she is.
How
She's
funny.
drinking in the background.
So let's dive into it. I saw recently on my social media you've got a surgery coming up. You've talked a lot about PCOS with respect to this past season because Lexi was a contestant who spoke about it on her season. So what's going on with you?
So I have endometriosis, which
Oh,
is
I'm sorry. I
that's
said
okay.
PCOS.
That's okay. Same general, vicinity. They affect the female reproductive organs. But yeah, 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 4 endometriosis. Lexi as well had stage 4. She and I actually connected and we hung out a couple months ago here in Atlanta. So she's been a great resource, and she had an endometriosis march in Atlanta. So a lot of us women in the endo community came together, and it was a great, like, it felt validating to know we weren't alone because this disease is not very well known. It's not very well researched, and unfortunately, it's very common though. We just don't have many answers for it.
Yeah. So
But
I was gonna say the only things I've heard are that, and I don't know if this is because medicine has kind of been run in the past by men, but that I've heard that a lot of women who have this have a hard time getting a doctor's actual attention to it being an actual issue. Like there's been a lot of talk about, it's in your head or it's this or it's that. Go on, because with Tasha, go on this birth control, go on that, and they it seems like they'll use your body as a test subject because they don't know what to do with it.
yeah, my case was a little different. That is the norm for most women, unfortunately. So for me, 2 years ago, my pain was getting so severe that my husband actually encouraged me to go to the doctor. And I was the one who was like, oh, I'm just experiencing, womanly pain. And I thought that it was normal, but it is not. So women out there, it is not normal to have severe pain. And
I
mine
mean,
was
on a scale of 1 to 10, what are you talking? 10 being doubled over, can't
yeah,
stand.
yeah, doubled over. It would wake me up in the middle of the night. Like, my pain meds wouldn't last through the night for me to sleep. So I'd wake up with excruciating pain. And it was mostly just on my cycle. Now I do have pain just randomly, not even on my cycle. Um, but my pain was so bad in my lower back, and it was lasting for weeks. And like, I would take high strength ibuprofen and Tylenol, and it would help. But then, like, right when it would wear off, the really bad pain would come back. So Brian was like, you need to go to the doctor. So finally I went. long story short for that was that I had a massive cyst in my right ovary at the time that was pushing on my lower back and into my hip, causing all that pain. So I had surgery to remove it, but we just thought I had a cyst. And then once they got in there, they found the stage 4 endometriosis all over my pelvis, all over my
Yeah,
uterus.
because they can't find it till they're actually in surgery, correct?
Correct. There's no way. So I had an MRI, I had ultrasounds, and it didn't show up because it's this like not tiny, thin spider web tissue, the endometriosis. And so it covers these organs, but you can't see it on any scans. It's crazy. So my MRI just showed that I had a cyst and everything else looked great. Once they got in there, it was like my surgeon said, like gnarly. Like
And so
when
are they able to do anything at that moment or just diagnose it?
yes, so it's called excision. So they like cut it off, and then the tiny parts that she couldn't get to as well, she burned. But that's not the best option. The best option is cutting it out. And I'm so thankful for my surgeon. She was a cancer surgeon, and we went with her. My OBGYN recommended that just in case my cyst was cancerous, but she was not an endometriosis specialist. So my next surgery this week is with someone who only specializes in endometriosis, and that's hard to find. But I wanted to make sure to go with that to just ensure that like he knows exactly what to look for, and this is the only thing he does every single day. So,
Where do they go in? Like,
so
where's
it's laparoscopic. So they make these small incisions, literally like just an inch wide. I have 5 scars, and then they blow up the tummy with gas. So they have like this big space, and then they have a robot. So the surgeon actually sits like in a seat away from the patient and maneuvers this robot. The robot does all the surgery. It's crazy.
I'm imagining a doctor like on an Xbox console, just
Yeah.
ready to go. That's absolutely wild. Now, what are the percentages of it just growing back? I mean, and I hate to use this terminology, but I'm envisioning it like weeds or something.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
it takes the
Most women need multiple surgeries for endometriosis. So I never had any pain relief after mine, unfortunately. So some women do. I spoke to a woman at Lexi's event who came up to me. She had surgery with this surgeon that I'm about to have my hysterectomy with. And she came up to me and she was crying of happy tears, saying that he changed her life and that after surgery, at her first period, she had zero pain. Um,
wow.
yeah, that was not the case for me. And for a lot of other women, sometimes it takes more than that. In my case, I'm deciding to just take the organs out because I don't need them. We have tried the IVF route and it didn't work out for us. So I'm like, I don't want to be in pain anymore. I don't need these organs. And the surgeon told me that once we take this out, he said, I have a 98% chance of never having this pain again.
Oh,
So
that's amazing. So you must be very optimistic.
very, yeah. A little nervous, of course, because it's surgery and the recovery is tough. And my last recovery was very tough, but now I know kind of what to expect and how to prep better and how to hydrate more. So very hopeful.
It took us going through the fertility process to, truly understand, just from a male's perspective, how sensitive these topics can be, because it's the reason why JD Vance might be costing himself an election, because he's like, oh, these crazy cat ladies don't want, like you don't always understand or can have empathy for what people go through with their body when it comes to not having control that they want. So can you tell us about your fertility process and what led you to this decision, like you said, to decide I'm going to have the hysterectomy?
Yeah. So after my surgery, basically, I woke up that first surgery to the news that I lost my ovary and right tube, and that my left ovary was okay, but my left tube was basically like demolished by the endometriosis. It was like collapsed in on itself. There's some fancy word. I don't know how to pronounce it, but
You're going to have to forgive me. Tube is what?
so there's 2 ovaries, and they have a tube that go right next to the uterus. So the eggs are in the ovaries, and the tube is where an egg each month comes through the tube to be fertilized.
Is that the fallopian tube?
Yes.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
sorry.
So did you lose the ovary because of the surgery or because of the endometriosis?
Both. So the surgery was to remove the cyst that was in my ovary. Once they got in there, the cyst was so massive and the ovary was covered in endometriosis and the tube was just like smushed up in there. My surgeon literally wrote in the notes, I couldn't tell what was what because it
Mm.
was like all one big nasty mass. So they just had to take it all out.
Are you knocked out at this
Oh yeah.
during the surgery?
Yeah,
Okay.
this is major under anesthesia and yeah.
Okay.
So I woke up to learn like they had to take the ovary, and then they told me that it was an infertility diagnosis because my one remaining ovary and fallopian tube, that tube wasn't working. So therefore an egg could not come through the tube to be fertilized for reproduction. So I knew right away that IVF would be the route that we'd have to take. So it was kind of, I mean, it all sucks, but it was kind of nice to know ahead of time before we started trying because we had never tried to have a baby before that. So it was kind of nice to like not go through years of trying and then finding out, you know?
Sure.
So um, then I got a new job that has fantastic benefits, and we were able to do IVF through my insurance. It was covered. So that was a huge blessing because I know it's extremely expensive and it's a huge burden, financially, emotionally, everything to go through. But thankfully, we didn't have that financial burden.
So before you get to the IVF, what was the level of disappointment finding out that you were infertile from the surgery?
It was very hard to
Like,
swallow.
did you even know that was going to be one of the thoughts that came out of that? It wasn't even your radar, like that the
Not at
cyst was
all.
that bad.
Not at all. I thought I was just getting a cyst taken out.
Mm.
I didn't know that I had endometriosis. And then, so finding out how severe it was, getting an infertility diagnosis, I literally, I wrote this in my caption of my first post 2 years ago after surgery. I was like, they said that my one tube is broken, but I'm hopeful that it will heal. And like, it can't. Like, healing, the tubes can't fix themselves. I just kind of made that up because I was holding on to hope.
Mm.
But then I learned from my doctor, like it's the way it is. It's not changing. And people will say like, "Oh, miracles happen," and I just had to accept that that was my anatomy, and it wasn't functioning the way it should. It wasn't functioning at all. So
Yeah, and it's like miracles happening would be great, but that kind of takes control out of like, well, let's pursue another option while we wait for those miracles.
exactly, yes. So then I decided, okay, we're gonna try IVF. It was really hard for me because my recovery was so tough with the first surgery. I knew that doing an egg retrieval and doing all the shots and all that was going to be really tough on my body. So I was very scared. But I went, I did it. It was awful. I just posted a video actually sharing a year later because last year when it all happened, I just was too upset to share. So I finally just shared. But we had amazing news at first. So out of my one ovary, we got 21 eggs, which is phenomenal. Like some people don't even get that much from 2 eggs. So my doctor was shocked and we were so excited. And then I learned this too going through the process. Like I didn't know how many small steps are involved with IVF. So
Oh, I can't imagine.
you do all the shots. Then you go in, you have to go in like almost every day for them to check on how the follicles are looking in the ovary. Most people have 2 ovaries, but for me, one. And the follicles, I didn't even know this. I'm like, why didn't they teach us this in biology or sex ed? The follicles every woman has are like when the egg is getting more mature to like be hopefully fertilized. The other eggs are just chilling and they're not in a follicle. It's crazy. So I had 13 follicles at my ultrasound, but then when I had my retrieval, I had actually 21. So they got all 21 out. Then they decide how many of those are mature. 18 were mature, which means they were ready to be fertilized. So then we fertilized all 18. Then you have to wait a day to see if they like take to the sperm. From my 18, 14 took to the sperm. But then
I'm sorry. Can I just can you without I'm sorry if this is graphic. How does this are they literally sperm like in a needle doing it all?
I think so.
So they're doing it under like a microscope level?
Yeah. So the
Wow.
sample was provided prior and they froze it. So then once it was time to use the sample, yeah, they find in the semen the individual little spermies, and they
And you
give,
got to choose a good one. What
yeah,
if you choose? You know what I mean? It's like, golly, there's
yeah,
some of them are idiots.
right.
Some of these sperm are not meant to make it.
Yeah, and I think that they do that. I think they look and find like the best ones.
Yeah, good looking
Yeah, the
something.
fast swimmers. So
Yeah.
then it takes a week from there to see how many turn into embryos. So we had 6 turn into embryos, and that was again a fantastic number because with my condition, my doctor said I expect maybe 1 embryo in the end. So we were like, well, crap, that's, it's not very hopeful. And so when we got
And you're
6,
I was gonna say you pay the same amount for this whole process, right? So it's all just like fingers crossed that any of this
yep, yep.
would take.
Yeah. So when we got news of 6 embryos, we were like, "Oh my gosh, this feels like a miracle." And our plan all along also was to use one of our embryos in a gestational carrier, which is similar to a surrogate. A surrogate uses her own egg. A gestational carrier uses an embryo created by the 2 biological parents. So we were hoping to do that because I was very nervous to carry myself with how kind of inflamed my whole region is, and my doctor agreed. But then all 6 of our embryos had chromosomal abnormalities and none were viable. So that was heartbreaking. The worst news ever after we thought that it was finally working out for us. And then we just had to come to the very hard decision. And Brian respected me making the decision for my body because my recovery was so excruciating after that egg retrieval. And I just said, I can't put my body through this again. And I've always had a heart for adoption because I was a nanny and I just absolutely fell in love with all of those babies and children. And I just was like, this, is the worst news ever. And we've always wanted to make a baby together because we love each other so much. And, you know that with Tasha and how beautiful August is because he's a combination of you two and your love. But we know now that like we'll still be able to have that with our child who's adopted, and he'll still be made from our love, just in a different way. So that's
Oh, absolutely. The bond that the child will have with you, the baby, when it comes to, you just see it. They're just, we have in our neighborhood, we were on a walk and there was a lady, they were fostering a baby. And I felt so bad for that baby because I was thinking, man, first of all, these foster parents, like, great for them, but like, are they giving the baby the love that a parent would? Because maybe they don't want to get attached. And I'm having all these thoughts, and but then at the same time, I'm thinking, wow, the waiting list for this baby, like someone's going to find this baby, and they're going to be possibly better parents than whatever situation that baby was in when it was given up for adoption. But yeah, it really makes you think about sort of the different ways that life figures itself out,
yeah,
whether it be through adoption or whatnot.
yeah. So we're very hopeful, and we already love our future baby so much, and it's just another route of having a child, and it's going to be just as amazing. So
How has Brian been as a partner through the different stages of the journey?
he's amazing. He's the best. I tell him that every day. But it was very hard for us at first because it was I had time. We went to couples therapy, and I'm a huge advocate for that because we've never ever had issues with like fighting, or we never name call. We've always had a very respectful, great at communication. But after the IVF news, it was just so hard for us to cope. And we were being there for each other, but we were feeling different things, and we just wanted someone to help us navigate through that. So, um, so our therapist explained it of like when I had my surgery and I woke up to my infertility diagnosis, I had all that time for over a year to process that and to kind of accept that this was the case. But then once we got the the news back about the embryos, then it really hit Brian of like, okay, now we both are in this together. It's like, if that makes sense. So it was like I had already kind of started coping and I was hoping for the best, but my body, I had already known about infertility. And then once we got the news about the embryos, it was just like, okay, now this is the end of this particular journey. So we just processed it differently, and she really helped us get through that. And now we're stronger than ever. Honestly, I know that sounds cliche, but like our communication has only gotten better, and we are able to support each other even more. So
Well, adversity will do that because it pulls out a side of you that, Brian might be a cool, calm, collected guy, but then you might have seen a side of him that which is, never having crossed a hurdle like this before, because not everyone has. When we started trying to have a baby, Tasha was considered geriatric, and she was like, I don't know if I can turn these things on. We've spent our whole life. I didn't know if my sperm were fertile, and she didn't know. And she asked me questions that I thought were super bizarre, because she was like, well, what if I can't have a kid? Will you still love me? Like, am I, she was asking, she was very, I don't know if insecure is the right word, but not sure about what we would do. Did you have any, and of course I would have loved her regardless, but did you have any feelings of inadequacy or things like that when it came to not being able to, get pregnant?
yeah, so that was one of the first things when after my surgery, the first surgery, I was struggling alone, coming to terms with the fact that I was not comfortable carrying a pregnancy. I knew that my body was telling me that I couldn't. But I was so afraid to tell him that. And so I had a therapist and I worked through that, and she helped me get the courage to tell him, because I was just so afraid that I knew he would love me, but I was afraid to disappoint him and not look at me differently, but just break his heart in that sense, because that was something we had dreamed of together. But I just knew that it wasn't going to work for me. So I told him, and I just broke down in tears, and he was so supportive and hugged me. And he knew kind of that was already coming. Like his instincts kind of knew. And that's how I feel like we're so in tune with each other, is he wasn't surprised by that. He trusted again that I knew what was best for my body. And then I had told my mom as well, because I was afraid to tell her. And I knew that they wouldn't love me any less, but it's a big decision that, you never think you have to make. But so that's when I had told them that I was hoping to use a gestational carrier, because my company also has a benefit that helps pay for that. So that's the only way that we would have been able to go that route, but it didn't work out, obviously. But it was very hard to get the courage to share that kind of news, even with the people that I was closest with.
Sometimes when we contextualize something going on in our life, we can talk about it in our head, but then when it comes time to sharing it, it can really be a block. And I've had this happen talking about breakups where, in your head you're like, yeah, good, I'm over it. And then you try to explain it and you're like, oh, what's going on here? So as a content creator, as someone who's really great with sharing, your struggles and things like that, what was that process like when you brought it not just to your parents but to social media, and did it introduce you to new communities? Like, tell me about that whole the
Yeah,
process of sharing.
yeah, I felt at first when it happened to me, because not many, like my close best friend circle, no one has had these issues, which is great. I don't wish this upon anyone, but I did feel like misunderstood, and that no one in my inner circle really knew what I was going through. And they were all very loving and supportive, but I felt alone. So once I started sharing online and realizing that unfortunately this is very common, and there's so many of us women going through things like this, so I felt less alone. I felt like a little community behind me. And then, like I said, with like Lexi going on The Bachelor and talking about her story, and us meeting up in person, and our stories are so similar. So that was nice to know that like she fully understood what I was going through. and meeting people at her event. And there's a community in Atlanta, an Instagram page that gets women together. I haven't been able to go yet, but I really want to. And women just kind of share their stories and are there for each other. And I'm hoping that I've helped some people in sharing my story as well. I've gotten some messages and comments that it's helped people feel less alone. So that's kind of my whole goal. With sharing my silly videos, my goal is to make people laugh and bring a little joy to their day. And then with sharing my stories, helping people feel less alone and also educating people, because I didn't know about endometriosis until it happened to me. So I want people to know what it is, how much pain it puts women in, how we need more answers, more research, and just advocating for it.
Yeah, there's so many negative aspects of social media, but one thing that it gets right is it gets people talking and finding community. With topics like miscarriages, you just don't hear people talking about until somebody does, and then folks come out of the woodworks to talk about it. And as a guy, no one would talk to the guys about these things. And I think a lot of men are kind of like fixers; they want to help out, and when they to think that there are men that maybe don't know the struggles their wives are going through, or anyone in their family, it's like it's in the end, you can't always fix someone's problems, but just to know that they're there and that they've got a support system is huge, whether they exactly know what it feels like or not.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's, like you said, one of the main positives of social media is finding a community. And I'm learning too. Like, I learned about this surgeon that I'm having surgery with through like word of mouth and through social media and hearing just people rave about him. So,
So let's talk about the surgery. Are you nervous?
yes, I'm nervous but excited. I'm nervous just because I know what the stabbing gas pains feel like after the laparoscopic surgery. So, like I was telling you, they literally pump up your whole abdomen with this gas, and they can't get it all out because it's just like they get as much as they can out, but it's kind of gets in there at a cellular level. And so, a few days after, it's just all up in there. It can shoot to your chest and shoulders. And I mean, you probably know what having kind of some normal gas pains feel like if you got an upset tummy, but it's everywhere and it's just like stabbing. So that is the worst part. And that's what I'm most nervous about because you can't do much about it. You can take Gas X, which can help kind of get it moving, but you really just got to wait till it all comes out. And it's tough.
So, and it's funny you said you were excited and nervous, which I think is the same emotion. I think it's literally the same hormone that we excrete when we're feeling that. So that's a good thing to
Yeah.
because it means you're ready for this next stage to happen. I did see online you have a GoFundMe. So, what's the process like in the world? We have a lot of political things going on in our world, one of which I'm a big advocate for is Medicare for all, because it's ridiculous that you have to bank on your job being able to help you out. It's like dangling our health in front of us. Work for me and I'll make sure you can get IVF. It's like, what are we talking about? So what's the process been like as far as a financial burden and all of that for the surgery?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's so unfair that we all have to spend different amounts of money for equal or for the same procedures, or people can't get care because they don't have certain insurances. So I'm totally on board with you on that. I think that we've got to step our game up on that.
We weren't even going to do the what's the anesthesiologist, but we ended up doing it, and I don't think they were in the same insurance network as the
Mhm.
as the doctor, and they were in the same room, and it's
Yep,
like, what
I know.
crazy world do we live in? I thought we were past this.
It makes no sense. Yeah. So that was actually part of what I'll add to this story is so I have great insurance through my job, which I'm very thankful for. But as you said, I think everyone should have the same coverage that I have, or we don't even need insurance. We should all just be covered. But the surgeon that I want to go with, because again, he's the number one rated guy for this, and I want to ensure that I get the best quality care. He doesn't take what he takes insurance, but it's all out of network. So that's fine. I don't blame them for that at all, but it's expensive. So I was really nervous with the finances because we just bought a house and with the adoption, and just a lot of things happening all at once. And my mom was just like, you got to do it. They gave you this opportunity for August 7th surgery. You got to take the slot. You're going to be grateful you did this. You're going to love it in the future. She was like, we're going to make it happen. And so she was like, let's do the GoFundMe. And I was like, oh my God, I feel like embarrassed. I don't want to ask people for money. And she and some of my friends at work that I was talking to about, they were like, there's no shame in it. Like, if people want to help, they can help. If they don't have to.
Yeah, you look, I mean, a GoFundMe, it's not like you're going door to door. It's like, here's the tip jar for something I'm trying to do. I don't care if it's health related or if you're trying to start your own punk rock band. Like, I really don't care. It's like, here's an opportunity for somebody to pitch in if they want. I don't, I reject the shame side of society. Like, no need. Like, God forbid you try to find the person that can help you out in your audience and people can come together. I know we've got some very charitable people in our community, so I hope that you recognize some rush hour donations on that. But yeah, how has it been to see people actually donate and to see that, wow, people actually do care about my health?
So, I don't want to say humbling, maybe that's the right word. Just shows how compassionate people are, which is a great reminder, because sometimes I feel like we don't have enough of that in the world. But seeing that most of my donations are people that follow me that I've never met in real life, like we've only chatted through, comments or some DMs, and for them to, out of the goodness of their heart, want to give me maybe just $10, like that means the world to me, because that just means they care. And I can't thank them enough. And seeing the number keep rising, and seeing, like, even my mom's friend from high school who I've never met, she sent me a lot of money. And I was just like, that is just so generous. So to see just how nice people are, people that I've never met, it's very, very heartwarming. And I'm just full of gratitude. And I can never say thank you enough. So
I'll make sure the link is in the description. And I'm assuming this episode will come out August 9th, which means you hopefully are in great recovery. And what a great way to drive traffic to your social media. They can find you at Kel Johns. Do I have that right?
yeah, that's my Instagram.
And yeah, go send her some support and some love. How long do you anticipate the recovery process to be?
So it takes a while. My surgeon said take at least 3 weeks fully off of work. And the full recovery until you're feeling back to normal is 8 to 10 weeks.
And on the other note, we were talking about adoption. How has that process been compared to like what you thought it would be? Has it been as more challenging, or what's that all like?
Just way more detailed, I guess would be the right word. Like, so many little things just to get approved, which is great, because you don't want, just anyone going and adopting a baby. So the background checks that are involved, we had to do full physicals, blood tests, drug tests, copies of literally everything you can think of, all insurances, ID cards, passport, marriage license, all of our finances, everything that we own.
Did you send them your acting reel? Was that part of it?
I did not. They didn't judge me on that.
You were like, I do characters. If
Yeah.
you're well, I heard from Pete Buttigieg on the Jon Stewart show. He adopted twins, and he talked about that vetting process and how, yeah, I mean, it seems you just bought a home, you just go through the whole credit score, home buying, this and that, and now you have to sort of prove that you're a worthy parent to be.
Yeah, we had to get reference letters. We had to fill out an 11-page worksheet that was like an autobiography about our lives separately. So it was a lot, but will be totally worth it. And the social worker came to our house to like make sure that it was safe. So that was kind of another thing we had to wait on, because we had finished the paperwork side, but then we had to wait to get into our house, and they pushed our closing date by 3 weeks. So we're just like waiting. And then we finally moved in. She was able to come here and approve us. And then our profile finally went live on the agency site. So we went with a marketing agency to help. Basically, it's search engine optimization, really. So like when you search for adoption, this website comes up as one of the first, and our profile's there. And that took a while too to create that. You have to carefully curate it with nice pictures and different sections about our lives.
Yeah, so I remember looking at that, it's like your headshot, you're trying to sell yourself to a potential, but who are you selling it to? Is it whoever's giving the baby up for adoption, are they choosing?
The expectant mothers, yes. So if someone is considering adoption, they, might Google adoption and they'll see this site is one of the first that pops up. Click on it, and then you can see the different couples or families that are hoping to adopt a baby. So you can click through and see everyone's profile and kind of they decide who they are interested in. And then they can say, okay, I want to talk to this couple. And then the agency will help connect you to talk with that expectant mother to see if it's a good fit.
It's kind of like, it's kind of like a dating site.
Yeah.
Here are my best attributes. Here's what I would be great. And
Yeah.
well, look, I mean, I'm so excited for you guys. I know you're going to crush it with the surgery and as a mom and
Thank you.
everything else in between. So please send us updates and any other words of wisdom, or how else can people find you?
Instagram is where I usually am at Kel Johns. TikTok too. I don't post there a whole lot anymore, but Kelly Johns Official. Those are the two main places I scroll. And just be kind, everyone. Like Ellen used to say, be kind to one another. We need more of that, especially with the craziness going on this year.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for opening up to my community, our community. I know you got a lot of fans over here, and we wish you nothing but the best. Sending tons of positive energy and love your way. So, good luck with it all. I hope you really enjoy the process of adoption, and there'll be a lucky kid out there for sure.
Thank you. And shout out to you, Dave. I just want to end with this. You help so many people. So thank you for all you do. Thank you for speaking up for people who need it and for advocating for people in times of need. So you're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly Johns, everybody.